I'm Cassidy, and we're interviewing Joe Bodie about his services in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Okay.
Did you volunteer for the service?
No, we were inducted. I volunteered after we were inducted. I was inducted on the 18th of December 1943, and on the 1st of January 1944, I went active.
What were your duties?
We were with the Royal Canadian Army Service Corps. Our classifications, we were driver IC. IC means internal combustion. Now, internal combustion means anything that worked on gas, we drove. We'd move from infant babies to 42-ton tanks in the front lines. You know, that was our job. I never got overseas till December the 18th, 1944. My brother was already overseas. We landed in England on the 18th or 25th of December, 1944. I said, I have a twin brother. I said, you think I can get with him? Well, he said, we don't put brothers together. Twin brother, yeah, he says, we will. Well, he said, where is he? I said, don't ask me. All his address is Canadian Army Overseas. You know, that was our address. Okay, we'll check you out, This was on a Wednesday. Friday, I was having supper with him in Germany, in the front lines. And we were together sometimes 3 or 4 days. Sometimes we wouldn't see each other for 2 or 3 days. You know, it was a very tough time. All our work was done at night under smoke screen. And we worked with the engineers. And we had 3 bridges to put across the Rhine River between Anaheim and Reese. Waterloo, the Bailey, and the Blackfriars. But we were just kids. You know, it was adventurous. You know, for some reason, it did bother us.
Was God a part of the experience for you?
Oh yeah, he was there, I'll tell you. If it wasn't for God, I'll tell you, I'll put it this way. I had the last rites 9 times. Every time you went in the front lines, it didn't matter what denominations, what religion, what color you were, or anything else. You still had the church in the front lines, you know. You had a priest, you had a minister, you had a rabbi, they were always there for you, you know. They'd give you a cup of tea, and they'd say, okay, this is your cup of tea. They'd give you the last rites. Okay, God bless you. See you tomorrow. Well, let's hope you do see me tomorrow, you know.
Hi, I'm Summer, and I'm with Rena, and she was born while World War II was going on in Holland, so she's going to tell us some of the things she remembers growing up.
As Summer said, my name is Rena Germs. I was born in Rotterdam. It's a big seaport. Well, it's a big seaport now. But it was a very busy place because that's where the ships and the soldiers were coming in. Now, I was born in 1941, so I don't remember much about the war. But I remember starting when I was about 3 and a half, the Germans came and took my dad away. They took him to a work camp. And we didn't know if he'd ever come back again, of course. There wasn't much food, and my mom would have to go to a kitchen where the German soldiers ate, and we would get potato peels, sugar beets. Someone had tulip bulbs, and those were the things we were given to eat. My mom couldn't cook them because we had no heat in our apartment. And so there was a neighbor down the block, and we could bring the pot of whatever we got, the potato peels or whatever, and she would cook them for us. But while my mom was doing those things, she had to leave my brother, who was 1, and me at 3 years old, alone in the apartment because there was no one to take care of us. And we were getting more hungry and more scared, and we were cold. And then someone said, and this was about in April of 1945, that the German soldiers had entered Belgium and were now coming into Holland to liberate us. And it wasn't long after, some of the food parcels were coming and we were getting some food. And then there was hope, because my mom had lost all hope. She didn't think she'd ever survive this, and there was no way she could even dry diapers. But things then looked up, and my dad came home again, and he was fine. And the soldiers came, and what I remember most then, it was at night, and she took me dancing in the street. Can you imagine that? As a 3-year-old, she just took me dancing out at night. And everyone was celebrating, and everyone was so happy. So it took a long time for our country to even get better again. And so I was lucky, because in 1954, Canada needed people like tradespeople, and Holland had too many people. So then my mom and dad went to an immigration night, and there they said if we wanted to come to Canada, we could, and they would pay our way. Holland would pay half, and the Canadian government would pay half. And so in 1954, they decided we would come to Saskatoon because that's where they needed plumbers. And my dad was a plumber. We were very lucky. And for me, the best thing about remembering anything like this is the parents. Now that I'm a mother and a grandmother, I cannot imagine what the women and the men and the families left behind here in Canada would think about their sons and daughters going away to a strange country, never knowing if they'd ever come back. That I just cannot imagine that. And so we're always thankful. I have a special place in my heart for the Canadian soldiers that came to save us, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. And for Canada for accepting us to make a life that couldn't be any better here.
Do you remember your mom ever praying, or was God a part of her life at all?
Yes. She would say, "Oh God, how am I going to get through this? I need your help." And especially when they took my dad away, she would pray for his safe return. We were too little, so we couldn't. But yes, that's one thing, my mom and dad did have a strong faith, and I think that got them through also.